Hey everyone, how's it going? Back again with another video this week. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about a topic that I was chatting with a former client about over text this week. And that's related to the topic around protein. And specifically, got on this discussion thread about trying to evaluate the quality of protein. And meaning, is this protein that I'm eating good for my goals? Meaning, if you're not familiar with this, protein, there's various different sources of protein, right? You can get protein from all kinds of different places, right? And proteins cover a wide spectrum of different things. And so some protein sources are ideal for certain things versus other protein sources are ideal for different types of goals. And even the source of which the protein comes from might affect how it impacts you and your goals, right? So a very good example of this is collagen protein. So collagen protein, I've talked about before, and I've written a number of blog posts about, but essentially collagen is a protein that makes up your hair, your skin, and your nails. And this is a little bit different than the type of protein that you find in muscle meat, right? So typically collagen protein, what we're talking about from animal sources, come from the hair, skin, or nails of the animal, or the in between the joints of the animal. So if you think about a chicken wing, right, you have that joint there that you can move the wing apart. And in between that joint is a lot of collagen, right? It's tough usually to chew on. It might not be as tender as the meat or whatnot. But when you're eating a chicken wing, for example, you're not only getting collagen from in between the wing joint, but also the skin that you're eating on the chicken wing, or the skin that you eat on the piece of fish that you might be consuming, that type of thing. So we can find collagen. Another common source of collagen is in bone broth, right? Because the joints of the bones that you make bone broth from contains a lot of collagen. And as you cook the bones, that collagen seeps out into the liquid. And collagen is very high in something like bone broth or in the skin or between the joints of the animal products that you're using. That collagen is a protein, and it has a very different makeup of different types of proteins, what's called amino acids, which make up the protein inside of that collagen, right? So collagen is very high in certain types of amino acids that make up that protein, and that those amino acids look a little bit different in something like muscle meat, right? In the actual meat of the chicken or the meat of the fish or the meat of the steak or whatnot. The amino acid, what they call amino acid profile, which basically just means the amount of the amino acids inside those proteins, looks different between muscle meat than does between collagen. And so when we were talking about improving the health of our own hair, skin, and nails, or the tendons and ligaments between our joints, it's been somewhat studied that eating animal collagen can help improve those things. It can improve the look of your hair, your skin, your nails, and your joints, right? By consuming those collagen, because that collagen can get incorporated then into your collagen, right? Into your body. But collagen, while it's a form of protein, it's not very good for building something like muscle mass, right? So if you want to add more muscle and you, as you know about, you need to consume protein in order to add that muscle. If you consume mostly collagen protein, because it does not contain the right amount of amino acids, the right amino acid profile, it doesn't do very well in terms of actually building muscle. If your goal is to build muscle and not necessarily to improve the look of your hair, skin, or nails or joints, then you want to consume protein from muscle meat, like things like the meat of the chicken, the meat of the fish, the meat of the steak, that type of stuff. That has the right amino acid profile to then support your body for building muscle. So this is something that gets down in the weeds, but can be a very important topic because people, especially for things like collagen has become a very popular protein source. You'll find it in bars and in supplements and stuff like that. And because it says it's a protein and it has X number of grams of collagen protein in it, people think that they are consuming that adds to their protein goal to support building muscle, when in fact they're actually probably doing very little to help them build muscle because it does not contain the right amino acids inside that protein in order to do that. Net of the story is collagen protein is not very good for building muscle if that's your goal. But it is a prime example of how the type of protein that you're consuming can impact the goals that you have. And there's other discussions around protein, like protein that comes from plants. Is it as effective as protein that comes from animals? Is it as bioavailable? Meaning, does your body digest it in the same way, or do you need more plant protein because it's not assimilated as well as animal protein? And there's some evidence to point that as long as you get the right amino acid profile, also this amino acid profile thing comes into play because certain plant proteins don't have the right amino acids in them. So as long as it's some evidence that shows that basically if you get the right sourcing of plant proteins and a little bit more, maybe you can probably just be just as effective as consuming animal protein, but it seems to be a bit more complicated and a bit more nuanced in terms of plant protein. So this amino acid thing and protein type quality thing is it's not something you don't need to pay attention to, but it is getting in the weeds. That said, I think it's an important topic to talk about because lots of times getting in the weeds then causes us to overthink things, and when it's not really a concern, right? So this former client of mine was concerned about the protein that was in a particular protein bar that she was looking at, and the company wouldn't exactly tell her, this client, what the amino acid profile was, only that it had a very good protein digestibility score equivalent of something like egg whites. So basically, as long as that is actually true and this protein bar does have a protein digestibility score of something like egg whites, you can assume that protein is a complete protein. It would help and support you in building muscle mass. But my argument to this client, or this former client, was it actually doesn't really matter at all, right? You're in the weeds for no apparent reason, because as long as this makes up a very small portion of your overall protein intake, which I'm going to argue that protein from a protein bar should be a very small portion of your daily protein intake, that the amino acid profile likely does not matter much to you, right? Because essentially you're getting all the right amino acids from all the whole foods that you're eating otherwise. And the 20 to 30 grams of protein that you might be getting from consuming this protein bar is insignificant because all the other amino acids are already present in the food that you're eating. And this is why when we're primarily constructing our diet from whole foods, we can be fairly certain that our diet is of a high quality and we don't need to concern ourselves in the nuance of things like the amino acid profile that's in this very specific protein bar. Now, if you're only getting your protein from protein supplements like bars and shakes and protein powders and all this other stuff, then you need to pay attention to what kind of protein is in those bars, shakes, protein powders, what the amino acid profile is. Because if, for example, 90% of your protein intake is coming from collagen protein and your goal is to build muscle, you're not going to be doing yourself any benefits by consuming all that collagen protein, because that collagen protein does not have the right amino acid profile to then support that. However, if you instead were getting 90% of your protein from meat, fish, eggs, a wide source of plant proteins, that type of stuff, dairy, all that fun stuff, or your normal whole food protein sources, you're guaranteed that you have the proper amino acid profile and you have a protein bar as a snack when you get hungry. Don't even worry about what that protein bar, the amino acid profile of that protein bar is, because you already covered your basis with the other whole foods. So you don't need to get into the weeds about what the amino acid profile of the bar or the shake is, or the protein supplements that you might be taking, because you've already covered your bases by eating the whole food diet, and whatever that happens to be, so be it. It's not going to affect your goals. Some of these things that can be made a big deal of don't actually need to be a big deal because your diet is comprised of whole foods. I just want to relay that message to people. And other people I know, like myself, can really nerd out on all these things, but sometimes we go deep down the rabbit hole and get lost in all these details and concerned about all this nuance and all this other stuff, when in reality, all that nuance and all that other stuff doesn't really matter because our other lifestyle practices are already in place, right? We're getting the good sleep, we're eating the whole food, we're exercising, we're trying to manage our stress, all that fun stuff that we always talk about. When all that stuff is in place, a lot of these nuanced things about certain types of foods or certain types of exercise protocols or hormonal things and all that stuff, a lot of the stuff you can disregard and not really worry about as much because you've already got the big rocks in place and the basics covered. And some of the nuanced down in the weeds type of stuff really does not matter.